The Monday, October 14, 2024 regular meeting of the Paris City Council is hereby called to order at 5:30 p.m. For the purpose of this meeting, there's a quorum of the council present. Invocation. Gene Anderson will lead us in invocation, followed by the United States Pledge of Allegiance and Texas Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by Mayor Pro Tem Savage. Please rise.
May we pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for each and every blessing that you bestow upon us. And Father, we just appreciate being able to live in this country, Father, and have the freedom to go and do and accomplish the things that we wish. We pray for our government on every level, national, state, and local. Father, that we would be the servants that the people elect us to be, and that you would prosper all that we do. We ask that you forgive us where we failed you, and we put our trust in you. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge of allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honoring the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Citizens Forum. Persons desiring to address the council must limit their presentation to no more than 2 minutes. Unless an item is posted on the agenda, the Texas Open Meetings Act prohibits the council from responding to any comments other than specific factual information. Claims against the city council members or employees, as well as individual personnel appeals, are not appropriate for the Citizens Forum. If necessary, the city council may convene into executive session to address. If necessary, the City Council may convene into executive session under Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code regarding any item on this agenda. The public forum is now open. If there's anyone who wishes to speak, please come forward, address the council with your name and your address for the record. Okay, would anyone like to speak? Okay, seeing none, Citizens Forum is now closed. Consent agenda. Does any member wish to remove any item on the from this agenda for discussion? If not, is there a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
We got a motion from Ms. Norman.
Second.
Got a second from Ms. Putnam. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Motion carries. 5-0. Regular agenda. Item number 12. Continue the public hearing, discuss and act on an ordinance creating the Forest Brook Public Improvement District Number 1 relating to the Forest Brook Housing Development Project. Staff, do you have a presentation?
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, good evening. We have joining us via Teams this evening, Mark McCliney with Samco Capital and Chris Settle with MPH Legal and Jamie Schulte with P3 Works. And we have been working with these consultants for the ongoing project for just over 2 years for Nathan Spalding, Lone Star Plan Development, for the Forest Brook Estates subdivision with the creation of a public improvement district. The reason we're here this evening, we do have a public hearing that's currently open, and to continue that public hearing, potentially approve the creation of the PID and also approve the development agreement as it is written and presented, and then also the escrow agreement and dissolution agreement as well.
At this time, I will go ahead and continue the public hearing and ask anyone to wishing to speak about this item to please come forward. I will now close the public hearing. Is there any discussion?
When do we ask questions to the consultants? Are they going to go over?
Yep, if you would, put your microphone in front of you if you don't mind. And his questions for those of you online, if you would, whichever would be most appropriate of the consultants, Chris, Jamie, or Mark, could you walk us through just the creation of the PID first, and then also the development agreement, and then the final, which would be the escrow agreement? Thank you.
This is Mark McCliney with Samco Capital Markets. I would ask, and I think Chris would be the best suited to go through all of that because of the legal steps and all the items that would be and are required. Chris, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak to the creation. The creation resolution can be public. The notice of the hearing was obviously published a while back and also sent to the property owners. And then once the public hearing's held and closed, the council considers the creation resolution and it creates the PID. And it does not obligate the city to do anything more. It's just creating the PID, putting it in place, and allows the developer to begin construction on the PID improvements. And the creation resolution, basically, the creation is effective immediately upon the adoption. Then the creation resolution will have to be filed in the real property records within a week of its adoption. And, at that point, everything's been done. The PID's created. So, from a legal standpoint, where that step is complete. I don't know if Mark, if you have anything or anyone else that wants to add to that.
No, I think those are the legal steps required to set up the shell, which is what we're doing now. We're creating the shell mechanism of the public improvement district. As we keep going,
Yeah. I'm sorry, I was going to say we're not levying assessments or issuing bonds yet.
as we proceed and the developer comes to us meeting the development agreement, which has been negotiated between the city's consultants, and the developer, when the developer is ready, he's going to come to us, the city, asking for us to issue bonds and levy an assessment on the property owners solely within the PID boundaries. That property owner initially is going to be the developer. The second property owners will be the home builders. Eventually, and those assessments get transferred from the property owner, the developer, then to the home builder, and eventually to the home purchaser. No city money to date, nor going forward, should ever be used to support the PID. The assessments are the sole revenue available to make either PID bond payments or payments to the developer for the improvements that he's putting in, the public improvements. That's in general, Mr. Vine, where we've got, what we're bringing to date now. I don't know, you or Stephanie may want to go through a little bit of the development agreement, but those are the steps for the PID and taking us up to today.
And just to kind of put these three steps together that are before you this evening, the first item is to actually create the shell that's the PID. The second is to approve a development agreement, and I sent that to you Friday, and we worked very hard with the developer to come up with an agreement that are our responsibilities and the developer's responsibilities, and through that development agreement, we get some additional things like concrete streets and a pocket park that we wouldn't have necessarily gotten in this development, and that's kind of what's in it for us. So that development agreement sets up the rules for how this is going to go forward as between the city and the developer. And then the final thing in front of you is, it's listed as a dissolution agreement. The agreement's actually titled escrow agreement, but it's pretty much the same thing. And what that does is it's an agreement that the developer will present us with a petition for dissolution. You will name an escrow agent, and that escrow agent is just going to have that agreement for safekeeping until there's a triggering event. And in this case, it's that no levies have been, there's been no levy for assessments in 24 months, and that would give the city and the escrow agent the ability to then file that with the clerk and consider dissolving the PID, because we don't want to have a PID that's not in support of anything out there. So those are the three things that we're doing so far. There are a lot of things that will have to happen next. As far as we're concerned, the next thing will be that the developer comes and asks us to ask the PID to issue bonds to create funds for that development of infrastructure, like Mark said. But today, those are the three things that are in front of you.
Is that 24 months pretty standard as far as the time frame of?
That
a
is
PID?
what our PID administrator consultant felt comfortable with.
Okay.
That now,
I would suggest there's nothing normal about any PID agreement or development agreement. Everyone is different because all the details and facts are completely different. We thought that was long enough, and I believe the developer believes it's long enough to get all the pieces in place because they want to move forward very quickly. But as Stephanie said, we don't want to sit there and then all of a sudden this not work and then have the shell sitting there. So this just is an avenue that would allow us not to, or to collapse it, so it's just not sitting there if this development does not work, which I don't believe anybody anticipates that to be an issue.
and my understanding, and Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that by entering into this escrow agreement and having this 24 months, we would not necessarily be obligated to dissolve the PID in 24 months, but it would give us that opportunity to do so if we felt that was appropriate under the circumstances.
Correct.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah, and I like that piece because it's not hindering the developer at all. It's giving him an opportunity to do what he needs to do, but it's also protecting the city. It's giving us some clawbacks, and it's giving us options down the road that we don't have to, dissolve, that we can continue depending on what's going on.
What else could trigger a dissolvement or escrow? And so let's say if there's 10 houses out and there's a request to dissolve the PID, how does that work?
Well, under this agreement, the only thing that would, under the escrow agreement, the only trigger would be that there have been no levy of assessments on any of the property in the PID. So I'll have to let the consultant speak to other conditions under which the PID might be dissolved, but that's the only thing that triggers it under this particular agreement.
So and I'm sorry, Mayor, let me just say this, just for people that's, watching this online and, just for understanding, when you say levy of assessments, could you explain that, just break that down a little bit?
Mark, you
Yeah,
want to take
sure.
that, or Chris?
Oh, I was just it's basically once the developer starts moving forward, the PID administrator, in this case P3, put together what's called the service and assessment plan and do a benefit analysis to basically determine the benefit that these PID improvements are gonna, that the property and the PID's gonna receive from the PID improvements. And so the dollar amount of the assessment will be directly tied to the benefit that each property receives. And so the city, at that point, once the SAP is ready to go, the city council would adopt an assessment ordinance approving the SAP and levying those assessments on the property. Once the assessment is levied, you cannot dissolve the PID until it's the bonds are fully paid off. Because if there's debt outstanding, you can't. The PID has to stay in place because that's the security for the bondholders. So, once the assessments are levied, the dissolution becomes, I don't want to say you can't do it, but it's very unlikely. And so that's why we use the levy of assessments as the trigger.
And a levy of an assessment just means that the city council votes to put this amount of money, this yearly payment that's going to have to be made by the property owner, whoever owns the property through time, they're going to get that with their tax bill. So that's what levying the assessment, it's adding an additional thing that's going to be assessed with their tax bill.
Thank you.
And
Exactly. And like I said, it's directly tied to the benefit that their property receives from the PID improvements.
just for the record also, I want to make sure the city is not held in any sort of liability or anything like that, because this is a reimbursement PID, correct?
Now, this is likely to be a construction, when the developer is going to be putting his money in, but will need some of these bond proceeds to actually finish and complete the projects. The assessment, though, is solely on the property owners within the boundaries of that PID. So if you do not live in the PID or don't own property in the PID, there is no opportunity for them to assess your property, anything in the city outside of the PID boundaries, or any city funds.
I would like to ask Mr. Spalding just a quick question, if you don't mind. Nathan, I've just got a quick question. What is a timeline of your construction, and then what is your end goal of finishing off this project?
So the boundaries of the PID for the PID agreement is just under 60 acres. It's 59.62 acres about. And so we're currently, actually, if you drive down Jefferson Road, you can see construction that's been started on the first section of that roughly 60 acre PID area. And so the goal is for that first section of 87 homes to be completed in the first quarter of 25 here in hopefully maybe January, maybe the end of January is what we're shooting for right now. And then the goal is to, after having that first section completed, immediately start on our second phase, which is about 102 homes, now that a couple have been taken away for the pocket park within the neighborhood per the development agreement. And then we expect that to take anywhere from 8 months to a year. And then the remaining acreage in that 60 acres would be the third phase, has about 102 homes as well, and that would follow that second phase. And the development agreement, as has been presented to you, outlines the process for all three phases, but that's the phasing we have envisioned for the property.
Perfect. Thank you.
Just while you're up, just for clarification, when you say homes, are you talking about actual structures, or are you talking about it's set up to build a home?
So we're a horizontal developer, and so we put in all the infrastructure and build the lots. And then we have different home builders that we work with, and we sell those lots to home builders. And then the home builders will do one of two things on all the lots. They'll either put up a spec home without a buyer in mind, and then just have someone walk in and say, okay, I want to buy this home that's going to be ready soon. Or they'll have home buyers come in and choose from their floor plans and all their different options and build one from the ground up with the home builder. But as far as us building the homes, we sell the finished lots ready for everything except for the builder to start building.
Right. So I'm just clarifying for our viewers, you're talking about the lots are ready to build homes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. The lots will be done in those three phases, and will be sold in those three phases to home builders as well.
So essentially, to back up that question also, so your home builders, the contracted builders will start, in essence, at the end of the first quarter of 2025, projected, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
When the first homes within that first 87 lot phase, to your point, that's exactly right. Homes will be going up first quarter of 25 if timelines stay as they are now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, please?
So this is probably not for this meeting, but I just have a question. What builders Are you working with any local builders, or are they all out of town?
We don't
Developers?
have any local builders in the project. They're all regional and national home builders.
Can you give me an example or some?
There's a home builder out of Sherman named Wildwood Homes. They're somewhat of a sister company to Beaton Bow Homes out of West Texas, but they're out of Sherman. And then our other home builder is D.R. Horton, who will be both will be in our first phase and throughout the project most likely.
And what is the vision as to the size of home or lots?
I'm sorry? The size of homes?
I
and
said
what?
or lots. I mean, are we talking about 290 homes and 60 acres?
200 and with the park lots being taken away, or with the lots that were previously home lots being taken away for the park, we're at 291 homes in that
Okay.
59 and a half acres or so. And the majority of them range from 55 to 58 feet wide by, 100 to 120 feet deep. Typical lot is 55 by 115.
And what size house would fit on that lot?
The typical slab for the home foundation on most lots is a 40 by 70 home slab, but the builders will put, we imagine they'll be putting homes up from on the low end, hopefully 1,400 square feet, and then one of our builders will be doing two-story homes. A lot of it's going to come down to what sells, but there could be some higher square footage, 26, 2,800 square feet and up, depending on what the market's what the home buyers in Paris are going to want.
So 2,600 average, or that's the top end?
It's hard to say what they're going to end up building. They're going to, obviously they're incentivized to build the biggest homes that will sell. So it'll come down to, as far as averages, it's hard to say, but it'll come down to what Paris demands there.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
And, sorry, Phase 2 does not begin until Phase 1 is completed with structures on it, right? Or just everything's sold?
Hopefully, if I don't answer your question, please let me know.
Yeah.
I'll try again. But the first phase, those 87 home lots, will be sold here in, hopefully, if everything goes right, in the first quarter of 25. And then immediately after that, the home builders, depending on where they are with their concerns when they want additional lots, for there not to be a gap in inventory for them to build homes on, we'll most likely need to start the development of the second phase before all the homes are finished in Phase 1. Because if we wait until all the homes are finished, they're going to be waiting on us to finish lots. And so as soon as we sell those 87 lots in Phase 1, they'll start building. And then sometime afterwards, we imagine if things go well, we'll be starting on Phase 2 immediately. So they'll have lots ready well before they're done with building all the homes in Phase 1, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question?
Is there like a percentage of that their goal is for construction at Phase 1 before committing to Phase 2?
Oh, once all the engineering's done with Phase 2, we'll be entering into more precise contracts with our builders. But we don't have we'll hopefully go under contract on that second phase more definitively before all the homes are completed in Phase 1, if that makes sense. So it probably won't be tied to that type of metric, how many lots will need to be, how many homes they'll need to be selling there. That's the idea, because we would most likely lag behind on providing inventory to them if we didn't get going soon enough.
So we're about 6 months away. What does the marketing strategy look like for this?
We have a number of different, as far as the developer goes, marketing strategies as events that we'll put on in conjunction with the home builders. And then D.R. Horton, as well as our other regional builder, has a pretty robust marketing strategy of their own that we're not privy to. But we will be doing some home events once the lots are completed. We'll most likely have a community event for people to come out and meet both of the builders, and as far as the developer, something we'll do, we'll have entertainment and food for the community and to come out and see the site, see the home builders. But the home builders have their own marketing
And then,
as well.
thank you. This is a question geared to both city staff and you, Mr. Spalding. The question that I have is I want to make sure before this goes through, if it does, that we outline exactly how the council will be made aware of the progression of this project, right? Because, obviously you're trying to hit the ground running. You've got, things that you've got to get done from your construction phase. We also, from a PID standpoint, we also want to know, hey, how many houses have been sold, or where are we at with phase one at completion? So do we have a boundary or a set parameter of understanding when we're going to get updates to the council?
We currently do not have anything in writing, but I think the developer, as well as we've been working with Nathan over the last 2 years, and we're finally getting this towards crossing the finish line, I think we could definitely have monthly meetings and have updates if that's acceptable by the council.
That's fine.
Very good. Have there been adequate traffic studies and the surrounding roads to support that many homes on Jefferson? I mean, for you, and I just want to make sure that the existing infrastructure can support that many more cars and people coming to and from, and the high school's right there with that traffic.
Right, of course. So the planned development zoning that was done in 2022, one of the conditions to that zoning was a traffic impact analysis being conducted. And so there was a traffic impact analysis done by an engineering firm that's been approved by the city that determined that the homes within this 60-acre PID boundary can rely exclusively on Jefferson Road. And so that study has been, existing traffic counts were taken, and that traffic impact analysis was conducted, and that was concluded. That's an excellent question, though.
So I know I keep going back to this, but just help me to understand, and I guess I'm asking Rob and Ms. Harris this. Our PID agreement is with Nathan Spalding, right? So it's not tied to, and we keep saying houses, it's not tied to the houses, but it's tied to him developing, to his part of the project, which is development.
Correct.
Not so it's going into phase 2 and phase 3, all of that is not tied to how many houses he has in the prior phase. It's tied to whatever his obligation is, and that's developing the land for houses, right?
Correct.
So we keep saying houses, so it confuses people, but it's not houses, it's lots, right? Because
Right, and
because he's
there's
not
nothing
building.
specifically about lots. I mean, the development agreement has to do with his building the necessary infrastructure.
Exactly. That's my point.
Yeah.
So we keep saying houses, but it has really nothing to do with houses, our agreement with him.
Correct. It's for the developer for the horizontal development.
Right.
Right.
So
Public
he used D.R. Horton as an example. Our PID agreement is not with D.R. Horton building houses directly, right?
Correct. I mean, because what the PID is designed to do, and the bonds are designed to do, is provide that additional funding for that infrastructure.
That's, okay.
And that includes streets and sewer and water and all that sort of stuff. After that, the PID isn't going to be funding the home builders.
Yeah, so that's, later on, we get the phone calls, well, they're not building houses over there, but y'all went into that PID agreement, and so we're saying houses, and some people might get, not understand that we're not necessarily talking about houses, but more so infrastructure.
Correct, and it's important to note that nobody who doesn't buy a home in that development is going to have any financial impact
Right.
from it at all.
Right.
And if you look at the city's website, paristexas.gov/PID, there is a lot of information on there for people who might have questions to alleviate some of that confusion.
So that's a really good point you bring up, tying back to the original question earlier. There's no liability upon the city, and then there's no liability upon the future homeowner. This is strictly an agreement between the city and,
Well, the financial liability, that assessment that you're going to levy, if we get to that,
Yes.
is going to place something, a payment, yearly payment on the owner of the property within the PID. So each property in the PID is going to have their fair share
Right.
of paying for the development, for the infrastructure that they're going to enjoy.
Understood.
This home's going to be
but
on.
they'll know that going in, obviously.
Yes, there's a homeowner disclosure. What is that? Of something you've got to give the homeowner, the buyer, before they buy.
Mandatory.
Closure, yes.
Yeah, the Texas Property Code has a home buyer disclosure notice requirement. So every person who buys a lot in the PID will get that, so they'll know what they're buying into.
Right, it's not going to sneak up on anybody.
And
I mean, unless they just don't pay attention to to what they're given, but yeah, it shouldn't,
most of
because
the
they will
time,
all receive that notice. So
right, most of the time it will be escrowed with their tax. Even though it's not a tax, it will be captured, and if people have an escrow, it will be captured in their escrow most of the time, is how a lot of people handle it. But to your point, if I may, on it not being tied to homes necessarily, that's a great point. And one of the things a PID does is it incentivizes homes to be sold, because as Steffi mentioned, once this assessment goes in place on these lots, if we were to keep ownership of those, we would have to be paying those annual assessments. And the same thing goes to the home buyers or the home builders down the road. Once we sell those lots to the home builders, they're going to be having to pay that assessment. And so it encourages these lots not to be held and to be built on quicker, so they can go ahead and get homes on them and sell them to end buyers. And then as far as notices go, your question, we are greatly benefited by having the city notified as quickly as possible, because the last thing we would want to do would be to spring something on the city and then you have to get your ducks in a row. And so we're absolutely happy to do monthly or even more frequent meetings that anyone would like, and we're happy to facilitate that.
Good deal. Council, is there any other further discussion? Any questions? If not, then I'll hear a motion.
And the first item is on the creation resolution.
Thank you.
Well, last thing I want to say is I know a lot of work has gone into this, many years, we've all had lots of questions, but I do feel confident that this is a major investment in our community. We have not had new housing in a very long time. We have a shortage, and it's within the city limits, which is what I'm championing and hoping to see more single-family units inside of the city limits. So I'll make a motion for item 12. Is that right? No.
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion for item 12.
Got a motion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 13, discuss and act on a resolution approving a development agreement between the City of Paris and Lone Star Planned Developments, LLC, relating to the Forest Brook Housing Development Project. Staff, is there anything else that you'd like to add to the discussion?
Well, is there anything else you'd like to know? We spent quite a lot of time negotiating this with Nathan, and there were a lot of moving parts and a lot of people to consult. And so we apologize for the late getting it to you on Friday, but we're happy to answer any questions about the development agreement itself.
I think you guys covered quite a bit there on that last one, so thank you.
Appreciate it.
If there's no questions or any further discussion, I'm happy to hear a motion.
Move to approve item 13 as presented.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Motion and a second from Ms. Norman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 14, discuss and act on a dissolution agreement related to the Forest Brook Public Improvement District Number 1.
I would, before you move to act on this, we do, if you want to approve it, need to name an escrow agent. And again, this escrow agent will just hold this document in case it needs to be used. It may, if everything's successful, it will never need to be used. Mr. McCliney had suggested that we use the city attorney as an escrow agent, but I did not fill any of that in because that's your place to name the escrow agent.
How does council feel about that decision?
I agree.
I personally don't have an issue with it. I mean, Ms. Harris has worked on this from the beginning, and so I think that it's best that she continues to speak, stay as a custodian of this documentation. So,
Yes, I agree.
Happy to serve.
I think that's a unanimous decision there. Any further questions or discussion regarding this dissolution agreement? And if not, I'll hear a motion.
I make the motion that we pass item 14 as presented.
We've got a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Savage. We got a second from Ms. Norman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 15, receive presentation from Maria Allen of the COG. Discuss and act on a resolution approving the Lamar County Sheriff's Office to receive calls as a secondary primary public safety answering point, PSAP. Staff, do you have a presentation? All right. Sounds good.
So Mayor Pro Tem, and Council, back in 1990, the Paris Police Department was established as a primary answering point for all 911 calls in Lamar County. It's a pretty substantial responsibility, and we've been doing that since '90. Recently, I was approached by the sheriff who wants to be able to, currently we forward, when a 911 call comes into the police department, and they all come to the Paris Police Department, if they're outside the city of Paris, we forward those calls to Lamar County. Right now, we have to provide them with all the location information, all the caller subscriber information. For several years, the sheriff has wanted to be a secondary PSAP, what we call a primary answering point. But secondary, we would be primary. And so Ms. Allen this year tried to make that happen for them, and there is funding available that she'll talk about that. But it requires the city of Paris's approval for that, or we have to concur with that. And talking to the sheriff, I think it would help if they have, when we will continue to get the 911 calls, we'll continue to forward them to the county dispatch, but they will then have the equipment in their office and their dispatch center to be able to interpret the geolocation data and the caller subscriber, so we don't have to relay all that information. It comes immediately when the call is forwarded. And so it really expedites the services, and from the police department standpoint, we think that's a good idea. And I want to introduce Ms. Allen. Ms. Rhea Allen is, let me get her title correctly. She's the GIS Program Director, and she's responsible for the development and implementation of the 911 program, network, and technical operations for 9 Texas counties and the city of Texarkana, which includes Lamar County. So, Ms. Allen.
Mayor Pro Tem, council members, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this very critical manner. Chief basically told you everything, but I'll give you a little history, if you don't mind, on where we are in the state of 911 for our region. So I've been in this position now for about almost 16 years, and over the years, the Lamar County Sheriff's Office has officially and unofficially called and asked, could they receive 911 equipment? I never say no. I always say, well, let me go to the powers that be, and that is the Commission on State Emergency Communications. And there's a push to consolidate 911 call centers, so they never did approve, never would approve the the creation of an additional public safety answering point. So every time they asked, I did go to the state to ask for that. This year, I was going over our strategic plan. And the goal and the purpose of our committees, or our departments as emergency communications, is to provide the best service for all of our residents in our area. About 15 years ago, we created an IP network. Okay, we came to the city of Paris because we looked at the Paris Police Department. They were the better suited as far as security went, as far as the facilities went, and we asked that they would be a host site because we wanted to interconnect all 14 of our public safety answering points. They agreed at that time to be our host to be. So we have a host on this side of our region, which is the Paris Police Department, and we have a host in Texarkana, which is our host A. So every single 911 call for our entire 9-county region goes through that police department, and they are backups for each other. In further looking at the strategic plan, we said, okay, what if the police department goes down? If the equipment goes down, if there's a fiber cut, who will take their calls? Well, for the past 20 years, it's been the Lamar County Sheriff's Office. So I took that strategic plan to the state and I said, they are part of our contingency plan. They should have the same level of service, the same equipment, because in precious moments when a 911 call is coming in, not having that information could be a delay of service. If I have to call another entity to find out where that call is coming from, if I need an XY coordinate of where the wireless call is coming from, if someone is traveling in a rural area, they're having to call the PD back to get that information. So I said, since they're part of our already state-approved contingency plan for the Paris Police Department, could we not fund them and get them the services and the equipment that they need? Last year, we were allocated for the first time through the state of Texas federal funding. The ACOG region was given $1.3 million for 911 next generation equipment. So we have upgraded all of our equipment sites, all of our 911 sites with new equipment, and we had a substantial amount left over after we got finished doing that. So I went to the commission again and asked, could we utilize that additional funding to make sure that the Lamar County Sheriff's Office had the same level of service? They said, if you do these following things, we will allow it. Okay, so first I had to go to the commission, give them the call volume. There were 1,799 calls transferred from the PD to the Lamar County Sheriff's Office just last year alone. So they met the transfer requirements. They are part of our contingency plan, as I just stated, and also they're the backup. So because of that, they said, okay, how much will it be to house, and do you have the funding? It was $310,000 for the routers, for the equipment, front room equipment, back room equipment, and for the circuits that we need. I went to the sheriff and said, these are the terms. You'll be a secondary PSAP, which means Paris Police Department still receives the initial call. They'll transfer to you and you'll get the location information, you'll get the numbering information, you'll have text to 911 capabilities, and any other service that we implement in the future, they will also have that service. So the city has to make that approval because like he said, in 1990, I believe it went back to 88 when 911 was first established, they designated the Paris Police Department as the primary PSAP and as the authority to receive the 911 calls for the entire county. So the county needs the city's permission to receive those calls on a 911 call taking equipment system. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have in relation to that.
I just want to say thank you for really dedicating the time to be here and to help us and advocating for this cause because clearly we need it based off of the call volume. You said how much was that again? 13?
Just the transfers alone. I could get you the numbers for the entire police department for the whole county, but just the transfers to the Lamar County Sheriff's Office, it was 1,799 calls.
That's a lot. So, I mean, clearly there's a need there and you're allocating money there. I mean, this is great. Before this, we just met with county officials, and, you know, I believe that this council is really taking a step forward along with our county officials to work together. This is just yet another example of why we need help. We need to keep working together and setting that foundation for a better opportunity for all of our citizens. So I appreciate this initiative, and I'm fully in support of it.
I know you mentioned that the initial cost is like 300 and some thousand. Are there any other costs associated from a yearly basis?
Also from the federal funds, we have what is core services charges, and that's basically the GIS aspect of 911 call routing, where the call is coming from, what public safety answering point that call is supposed to go to, what public safety answering point it goes to if it's down, what public safety answering point it goes to if both of those contingency sites are down. It's all done via this portal that we have now, where we can designate where we want those calls to go to. And to get the equipment was $310,000. The core services will run us about $45,000, adding for our whole region a year. And then we have those charges every year, but that will come out of the 911 service fee, which is state funding, not federal funding.
Okay.
So the federal funding really helps us get that big chunk of the equipment. And they're doing that for the entire state for next generation services. So where they're pushing for consolidation across the state, we're saying, okay, a part of our network shows the Lamar County Sheriff's Office as a critical part of our overall strategic plan. This needs to be an exception because we have our host equipment here. We have this site here that they're dead in the water if they ever go down. It's just answering a call on a regular phone line. And that's how it is right now today for them. So we just want to make sure that our system is airtight and robust as it can be.
Yeah, and just listening to y'all make the presentations, and you mentioned precious time. When you started explaining it, I said, from an ergonomic standpoint, as far as the dispatchers from both entities, this is going to save precious time, and it's going to make their job a lot easier. So I really love it.
Is there like an annual subscription fee or anything that the county would be expecting, any kind of funds to go out to that?
No, the state 911 funds cover all 911 services, not administrative services as far as dispatcher salaries or anything, but to run the actual network, all services are covered by the state, and this is our first time receiving federal funding for that equipment.
Any other questions? All right. If not, then I will hear a motion.
I'll make the motion to pass, item 15?
Yes, sir. We got a motion.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Allen. Moving on to item number 16, discuss and authorize the interim city manager to execute a ground lease agreement with LT Wings for the construction of a private hangar number 1 at Coxfield Airport.
Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. So this memorandum here that I have, I'll brief you on the actual project as a whole, and then as I understand it, then you guys would have to vote on each individual hangar. So if you remember, some 2-3 weeks ago, City Council passed the access road, permission to build that access road through LT Wings. And this is the reason here. LT Wings is wanting to build 9 privately owned hangars out there at the airport, and then we're certainly going to increase the revenue for the airport. But overall, we would not only like for the memorandum to be passed, but also authorize the city manager or the interim city manager to execute all 9 ground leases for LT Wings.
Council, is there any discussion? All right. I will go ahead and hear a motion.
So it needs to be an individual motion for okay.
Yes, how we'll go forward is we'll do a motion, we'll go ahead and pass or ask for a vote for item number 16, then we'll go on 17, 18, we'll have to do it individual.
Second.
So, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 17, discuss and authorize the interim city manager to execute a ground lease agreement with LT Wings for construction of a private hangar, hangar number 2 at Coxfield Airport.
So moved.
We've got a motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 18, discuss and authorize interim city manager to execute a ground lease agreement with LT Wings for the construction of a private hangar, hangar number 3 at Coxfield Airport. I will hear a motion.
So moved.
We got a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion, those opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 19, discuss and authorize the interim city manager to execute a ground lease agreement with the LT Wings for construction of a private hangar, hangar number 4 at Coxfield Airport.
So moved.
We got a motion. Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 20, discuss and authorize the interim city manager to execute a ground lease agreement with LT Wings for the construction of a private hangar, hangar number 5 at Coxfield Airport. I will hear a motion.
So moved.
Motion
Second.
and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 21, discuss and authorize the interim city manager to execute a ground lease agreement with LT Wings for construction of a private hangar, hangar number 6 at Coxfield Airport. I will hear a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 22, discuss and authorize the interim city manager to execute a ground lease agreement with LT Wings for construction of a private hangar, hangar number 7 at Coxfield Airport. I will hear a motion.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 23, discuss and authorize interim city manager to execute a ground lease agreement with LT Wings for the construction of a private hangar, hangar number 8 at Coxfield Airport. I will hear a motion.
So,
Okay, and a second.
second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 24. Discuss and authorize the interim city manager to execute a ground lease agreement with the LT Wings for construction of a private hangar, hangar number 9 at Coxfield Airport. I will hear a motion.
So moved.
Okay, motion and a
Second.
second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, sir. Agenda item number 25, discuss and act on an ordinance amending Article 12.04, Solid Waste of Chapter 12, Utilities of the City of Paris Code of Ordinances. Staff, do you have a presentation?
Yes. On March the 11th, City Council repealed Article 1204 and replaced it with a new article. That ordinance contracted collection of solid waste for residential customers that began on February the 5th, and commercial solid waste by a third party, which began on September the 1st. Staff did not take into account the roll-off customers, and those customers are the one that use the roll-off dumpsters for temporary construction, remodels and things like that, and the local taxing entities, which were not affected by the switchover. So we need to re-adopt Division Number 2. We're recommending adoption of the ordinance. One of the other items that it includes is that the permits for the solid waste haulers would be done administratively, which is like you all approved for the taxi cab agreements. Does anybody have any questions?
Any comments or concerns, anything? And if not, I'll hear a motion.
So moved.
Got a motion and a, here in a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item number 26, discuss and act on a resolution repealing resolution number 2023-013, which authorizes the Paris Police Department to pay a hiring incentive of $10,000 to newly hired Paris police officers. Chief, do you have a presentation?
So I know when y'all hear police department and money, everybody cringes. So here we're going to save the city some money. Over the past several years, you guys are aware we've had trouble recruiting and retaining police officers. A few years, it was 2023, we passed a resolution or ordinance approving a $10,000 hiring bonus to try to incentivize recruitment in the police department. While we were doing that, so was the rest of the country. So it didn't have the desired effect. It really didn't have much of an effect as far as recruitment goes. Under this current budget, the council approved a significant pay raise to the police officers. That's already having a significant impact on our recruitment. So we don't think that we need the $10,000 hiring bonus anymore, and think it's good business to repeal it and make us better stewards of the taxpayers' money. So it's okay to repeal that as far as the police department's concerned.
Council, is there any discussion?
So this was included in the 24-25 budget, right? The bonus, right?
It was carried over.
Carried over.
It was
okay.
approved in the 2023-24
Yeah, but I'm
budget.
saying we still working
Yes,
in.
yes.
So do we have any ideas what we want to do with this money? Or is it going to stay in the police budget or?
This was actually, I spoke with Grayson about this over the weekend. This was actually not budgeted for particularly out of the police department budget. It was just taken out of reserves or wherever we had surplus cash from a different department. So it wasn't, we didn't actually have a line item that was just for a bonus.
Okay.
And then I want to also point out that tomorrow we have a test that was advertised back in July, I think it was. We advertised, the last test advertisement we had, well, that test is tomorrow. And that test was advertised under the condition of the $10,000 signing bonus. So when under civil service, when we give a test, out of that test will come a list of applicants. Out of the process, the hiring process, we'll get a list of applicants. And so that $10,000 bonus will stay in effect until we exhaust that list. So we kind of maintain the integrity of our system.
Understood.
Chief, are you able to let us know the numbers on that?
On yes.
The applicants?
Yes. On right now, I can tell you as of 3 weeks ago, we were at 40 or above, and I think we're over 50 now. 61, okay.
61
applicants.
Is that a record?
That's a record since I've been here.
Yeah, okay.
Really?
Yeah.
So-
We've been averaging about 7 to 15 applicants to take the test, sometimes 3, sometimes not very many.
So any of those that we hire out of this group, we will pay the $10,000 for?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Because we've advertised it. When they applied for it, it was on the site. It's still on the site. So what we'll do is we'll take that off before we advertise another test exam list, then we'll take that off the website.
Good to know. Thank you.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Okay. All right, well, I will hear a motion. You got a motion? All right,
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 27, discuss and act on an ordinance establishing school zone speed limits on certain portions of certain streets and highways and public places in the city of Paris. Amending traffic school zone speeds in chapter 11.02.005, establishing days and times when school zone speed limits will be in effect.
Evening,
Assistant
Mayor,
Chief.
Mayor Pro Tem, Council. As you recall, I came before the July 22nd meeting to change these school speed zones because of the change of scheduling at our schools. Y'all passed that. We made the changes. School started, and Paris School District realized that they needed to extend some time on their school zones. So we brought it, after we made the changes, we brought it to a traffic commission in our October meeting, and they passed it, recommended that it be forwarded to council for you guys to amend the ordinance to reflect the changes.
Council, any discussion? If not, then I'll hear a motion.
So we,
Okay, got a motion. Do I hear a second?
second.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 28, discuss and act on appointment of Abigail Frank to serve the unexpired term of Kelvin Hicks on the Library Advisory Board. Staff, do you have a presentation?
We do. Kelvin Hicks recently resigned, and we went through the applications. We had one, Abigail Frank, who had applied for the Library Advisory Board. We contacted her. She still wants to serve. We're recommending that you appoint her.
Council, is there any discussion on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll hear a motion.
So moved.
We got a motion,
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 29, discuss and act on a council liaison, appointing a council liaison to the Main Street Advisory Board. Staff, do you have a presentation?
Yes, Councilmember Ellis is currently serving as liaison to the Main Street Advisory Board. He has a scheduling conflict with a meeting date and has asked that another council member be appointed as liaison to this board. They do meet the second Tuesday at 4:30 in the council chambers.
I'll volunteer.
Okay. Any further discussion? If so, then, if none, then I'll go ahead and hear a motion to approve.
I make
Ms.
that
Bodnar.
motion to approve
We got a
Alex.
motion and we got a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 30, receive presentation and discuss engaging the services of a grant writer for lobbying on behalf of the city. I know I put this on the agenda for quite some time. We've been talking about the need for a grant writer, and so we've been looking and trying to figure out how does this go, how will this work? Let's set the foundation and understand the process of how this will work. I know that in the past we've worked with GrantWorks, correct?
Correct.
And that's been more of a regional, local type of grant writing service that we've used. But this, on a scale that I've looked at from a federal guideline standpoint, this would be huge for us. And so I have proposed a lobbyist to come down that also does a lot of grant writing for other communities to come down and propose their plan of what they would want to see proposed to our city. And this would be for Wednesday, correct?
Wednesday, the 16th, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Depot Building in the community room.
And
Wednesday, what date was that?
Wednesday, the 16th, in 2 days,
Oh.
10 a.m. to 2.
And I believe that this would be a good time for us to research as a council and as a city, in concert potentially with the county, to see what are our opportunities, right? Just to at least set a framework, a groundwork to understand, hey, could we possibly look into some federal funds? I know personally, on a personal note, we've spent so much tax money going back to the federal government. I want to see some of that come back here and help benefit our citizens. And if that means that we as a council start that conversation, and if it doesn't go anywhere, it doesn't go anywhere, but at least we start the conversation and understand how can we benefit as a city and as a county to potentially get those funds back into our community.
What was the time again?
10 a.m. to 2.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone should have a calendar invite as well, but I could resend it.
I think I got it. I may have, yeah, I do. Yeah, I've got it. I accept it. My fault.
And so the gentleman is coming down from Washington DC. So if there's anything else, any questions or anything, we can present, we can ask at that time. And then also on top of that, I know his contact will be made available too. So anything that we want to discuss, we can certainly ask and see what the opportunities lie for our community if we were to go with this plan. All right. And this was strictly just a discussion item. Are there any questions or anything that we want to discuss? All right. If not, then we'll move that portion on to have a good discussion on Wednesday. Agenda item number 31, consider and approve future events for the city council and or city staff pursuant to resolution number 2004-081. Anything that anyone wants to bring forth? I had just a couple things I wanted to look into And it's not immediate, but I think that we need to at least start laying the groundwork to understand if we can get some agenda items towards the end of the year. I know we've only got 3 meetings left, but I know we've talked a little bit in summary on the strategic plan. I really think we should still continue with that. Without having some sort of guiding document or anything. I know we have some in the past, but a current to-date strategic plan, we've got to have some sort of vision and plan. And so I think that we still need to find that direction and look into this, whether it be Baker Tilly or whatever other firms there are. But I'd really like to understand how we can go forward and have a strategic plan. Similar topic with a downtown vision and getting an update on the vacant building registry. I think these 2 topics are very, very important, and one that I think that a lot of us get questions on all the time, but it would be good to understand where we're at with that vacant building registry. And then also, we want to have a good cohesive understanding of downtown and the vision going forward and for the future. Anyone else have anything?
Yeah, just direction on, I know in the charter, it's, the council has to make 75% of their meetings unless excused. So how is that done? Is that just something that we agree, or do we need to put that on an agenda item to excuse, if council missed?
Let me consider that, because the charter provision doesn't specify that.
Right.
So what I'll do is we can have an agenda item in the future that perhaps we can give you some proposals, and then that in the end, it's your decision to make how you want to police that.
Okay, yeah, I mean, just me personally, I think it should be an agenda item just so it can't come up later. It's official.
Mayor Pro Tem Savage, do you want to see that at the next council meeting?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Sorry, Mr.
515, I think it would help us if we saw something sent out on maybe the status of each one of those projects. How many of the 5-10 houses for each project have been built and timeline, and just get a little bit of feedback. Doesn't need to be on the agenda if it gets sent out beforehand or however that works best, just to kind of know where we're at.
Anything? Nope. Okay. Sounds good. Well then, if there's nothing else, then I'll hear a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Got a motion and a second. We are adjourned. I had to whack that extra.